Anger is a natural emotion, raw, powerful, and often overwhelming. Yet, left unchecked, it becomes a destructive force capable of unraveling your relationships, shattering your peace, and poisoning your mental well-being. It's a fire that consumes not only those around you, but your very core. But what if you could tame this fire? What if you could transform anger from an uncontrollable outburst into a tool for self-mastery? In today's video, we'll unravel the mysteries of anger and explore 9 transformative strategies to not only understand its roots, but to control it and channel its energy toward personal growth. These aren't mere tips. They are life-altering principles that will help you reclaim your peace and elevate your emotional resilience. And here's where you come in. If you find value in this content, don't hold back. Take a moment to like this video. It's a small act, but one that signals to YouTube that these lessons matter and should reach more people. Think of it this way. By helping others discover this wisdom, you're also aligning the universe to bring value back into your life. If you're ready to make this journey with us, hit that subscribe button and become part of the Victory Stoic community, where we turn life's challenges into opportunities for growth. So, are you ready to take control of your anger and transform it into a tool for clarity and strength? Let's dive in. Number 1. Practice mindfulness to recognize your anger. Anger doesn't appear out of nowhere. It builds, piece by piece, until it explodes. The problem is that most of us don't notice it until it's too late. This is where mindfulness becomes your most powerful weapon. It's not about suppressing anger, it's about catching it in the act, understanding it, and deciding how to respond before it takes over. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present, of paying attention to your emotions without judgment. Imagine you're standing on the edge of a storm. Instead of getting swept away, you pause, look up, and realize the storm is coming. You don't deny its existence, but you don't let it control you either. This is how mindfulness works. It gives you the ability to observe your anger as it rises and decide how to handle it. Why it works? When you're mindful, you create a gap between stimulus and reaction. Instead of being triggered and immediately lashing out, you give yourself space to breathe, think, and act with intention. Science backs this up. Mindfulness reduces the activity of the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for emotional outbursts, and activates the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for rational thinking. Picture this. You're driving home after a long, stressful day. A car cuts you off, and the surge of anger is almost instantaneous. Most people would slam their horns, yell, or tailgate in retaliation. But you, practicing mindfulness, take a deep breath. You say to yourself, I'm angry right now, but does this car cutting me off deserve my peace? With that, you let the anger pass, and instead of carrying the tension home to your loved ones, you arrive calm and centered. Think of anger like a firecracker. Once lit, it burns fast and explodes. Mindfulness is the act of noticing the spark before it reaches the fuse. It's not about denying the fire, it's about disarming it before it can do damage. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Anger often comes from our reaction to things we cannot control. Mindfulness reminds us that while we can't change external events, we can always control our response. The lesson: mindfulness isn't just a tool, it's your armor. By observing your anger without judgment, you regain control over your emotions. The next time you feel the heat rising, pause. Take a breath. Acknowledge the emotion, but don't let it define you. In that moment of stillness, you reclaim your power. Number 2. Become an observer, not a victim. Anger thrives on immediacy. It wants you to react, lash out, and lose control. But what if, instead of diving headfirst into the emotion, you stepped back and observed it as though it were happening to someone else? This shift in perspective turns you from a victim of your feelings into an objective observer. And in that objectivity lies your power. When you observe your anger from a distance, it loses its grip on you. Instead of being consumed by the heat of the moment, you can dissect the emotion. Ask yourself, why am I angry? Is it because I feel hurt, ignored, or because my expectations weren't met? This introspection transforms anger from an uncontrollable force into a solvable equation. Imagine this. You're walking down the street, deep in thought, when suddenly someone bumps into you hard. Your initial reaction is pure frustration. How dare they? They weren't even paying attention. But as you turn to confront them, you realize it wasn't a person, it was a stone you accidentally tripped over. Immediately, the anger dissolves. Why? Because you understand that the stone had no intention, no malice. The mistake was circumstantial, and your anger feels misplaced. The same principle applies to people. Often, our anger stems from assuming malicious intent in others. But what if their actions weren't about you at all? What if they were distracted, struggling, or simply unaware? Observing rather than reacting allows you to recognize this and choose a calmer response. Real-life examples. In relationships, you're having a conversation with your partner and they seem distant. You immediately feel a surge of anger. They don't care about what I'm saying. But instead of snapping, you take a step back. You observe their body language and realize they're not dismissing you. They're stressed about something unrelated. By observing instead of accusing, you avoid unnecessary conflict and build understanding. At work, your boss criticizes your project in a meeting. The anger wells up. They're singling me out. But pausing, you ask yourself, is this about me, or is my boss frustrated about something else? Stepping back helps you see the critique as constructive rather than personal, allowing you to improve without resentment. Psychologists call this emotional distancing. By mentally stepping outside the situation, you deactivate the fight or flight response in your brain. This shift engages your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thinking, allowing you to make calmer, more thoughtful decisions. Marcus Aurelius advised, "You always have the power to have no opinion." There's never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. Observing your anger doesn't mean ignoring it. It means understanding it without letting it consume you. The lesson: becoming an observer of your anger isn't about suppressing it. It's about understanding its source. The next time you feel anger bubbling up, ask yourself, is this worth my peace? By detaching and analyzing, you turn what was once a destructive force into an opportunity for growth and clarity. Number 3, ask yourself, does anger help? Anger often demands immediate action, tempting you to lash out, shout, or retaliate. But before you succumb to it, take a pause and ask, what will I gain from being angry? Most of the time, the answer is nothing. Anger often leaves behind regret, damaged relationships, or missed opportunities. Understanding this can help you choose a more constructive path. Anger, when left unchecked, rarely resolves issues. Instead, it tends to escalate them. A sharp word spoken in anger can linger long after the heat of the moment has passed. A reactive action, like slamming a door or storming out, can harm a relationship irreparably. So is the momentary satisfaction of venting worth the long-term consequences? When you feel anger rising, take a pause, not just a breath, but a mental pause to ask yourself, what outcome do I want from this situation? If the answer is resolution, then responding with calm and clarity is far more effective than reacting with rage. Imagine this. A colleague takes credit for your hard work in front of the team. The immediate reaction is anger, and the urge to confront them in the meeting is overwhelming. But what happens if you do? The situation turns into a public spectacle, leaving everyone uncomfortable and your reputation bruised. Now consider the alternative. You wait, approach them privately, and assertively address the issue. Not only do you maintain your professionalism, but you also resolve the problem without collateral damage. Another time, when you are at a family gathering and a relative makes a snide comment about your life choices. The instinct to retaliate with a biting remark is strong, but before you do, you ask yourself, what do I achieve by snapping back? Instead, you choose to ignore the comment or respond with humor. The result? You maintain your peace and avoid a holiday ruined by unnecessary drama. Anger is a high-energy emotion that can cloud your judgment. When you pause to reflect, you engage the rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which helps you think clearly and make better decisions. This simple shift from reaction to reflection can completely change the trajectory of a conflict. Epictetus, a master of Stoicism, taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Anger isn't the enemy, it's your reaction to anger that can make or break a situation. By questioning its utility, you reclaim control. The lesson: the next time anger flares up, pause and ask yourself, Will this make my situation better? If the answer is no, and it often is, choose a response that aligns with your goals, not your emotions. Anger might feel powerful at the moment, but true strength lies in your ability to rise above it. Number 4, understand your true emotions. Anger often acts as a shield, a fiery, explosive shield that conceals what's happening beneath the surface. It's easier to lash out than to admit vulnerability. But what if, instead of letting anger control you, you paused to look deeper? What if, instead of shouting, slamming doors, or holding grudges, you asked yourself, what am I truly feeling? Imagine this. You're in the middle of an argument with someone you care about deeply. The words exchanged are sharp, the tone escalating. You feel the heat of anger rising, and everything in you screams to respond in kind. But suddenly, a quiet thought emerges. Am I really angry, or am I hurt? This subtle shift changes everything. You realize your anger isn't about hatred or frustration. It's about feeling unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. When you peel back the layers of anger, you often find softer emotions: sadness, disappointment, fear. These emotions aren't as loud or dominant as anger, but they are the ones that truly need your attention. Anger is reactive, but these underlying feelings are where the truth lies. Understanding your true emotions isn't about dismissing anger. It's about seeing it for what it is, a messenger. Anger demands your attention, but it's your responsibility to interpret its meaning. Is it signaling a boundary being crossed? Is a desire unmet? Is a wound unhealed? By recognizing these deeper truths, you empower yourself to respond with clarity instead of chaos. This introspection isn't easy. It requires courage. It means admitting you're not invincible, that you feel hurt, lonely, or even rejected. But in this admission lies immense power. Because once you understand the real source of your anger, you can address it directly. You can have honest conversations instead of shouting matches. You can seek solutions instead of revenge. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "Dig within. Within is the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig." This is the heart of understanding your emotions, digging beyond the anger to uncover the wellspring of insight beneath. The next time anger visits you, don't let it take the stage unchallenged. Instead, ask yourself, what's going on here? The answer might surprise you, but it will also free you. When you confront the truth of your feelings, you reclaim the narrative of your emotions. And in doing so, you not only master anger, you master yourself. Number 5. Identify biological and chemical triggers for anger. Sometimes anger doesn't stem from a deep emotional wound or a complex relationship issue. It's a chemical reaction, a physiological response to stress, substances, or unrealistic expectations. Recognizing these triggers can be the difference between understanding yourself and feeling perpetually out of control. Imagine this scenario. You've had a long day at work. Deadlines loomed, your boss was critical, and traffic was unbearable. By the time you get home, your partner innocently asks, "What's for dinner?" And suddenly, you snap. Was it their question? Of course not. The real culprits are the stress hormones flooding your system, amplifying your irritability, and clouding your judgment. Caffeine and alcohol, the silent agitators. Let's take a closer look at two everyday substances, caffeine and alcohol. While your morning coffee might wake you up, overconsumption can make you jittery, anxious, and quick to anger. On the other hand, alcohol, often seen as a relaxant, lowers inhibitions and amplifies emotions, making minor annoyances feel like monumental offenses. Think about that one argument you had at a party after a few too many drinks. It wasn't the issue that was larger. It was your lowered ability to process it calmly. Perfectionism, the unseen anger machine. Now, consider perfectionism. The desire to control every detail of your life can turn minor setbacks into emotional landmines. Perhaps you planned a romantic dinner with your partner, envisioning every detail as flawless. When the restaurant messes up your reservation or the weather ruins your outdoor setup, anger surges. But is the outburst really about the situation, or your unrealistic expectations of perfection? The first step is awareness. Track your anger episodes and notice patterns. Do they often happen after consuming certain substances? Do they coincide with particularly stressful weeks? Or are they triggered when things don't go as planned? Take Sarah, for example. Sarah noticed she and her boyfriend fought more often on Friday nights after their regular happy hour. Reflecting on this, she realized the combination of alcohol and exhaustion from the work week was fueling her irritability. By switching their date nights to a relaxing Saturday morning coffee instead, the frequency of their arguments dramatically decreased. When your body is under stress, whether from alcohol, caffeine, or overexertion, it releases cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones, while useful in emergencies, can heighten emotional responses and reduce your ability to think clearly. Epictetus reminds us, control what you can, accept what you cannot. You may not always control life's chaos, but you can control how you prepare your mind and body to face it. The lesson: understanding the biological and chemical triggers for your anger doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. By managing these triggers, you create a foundation of stability that prevents minor irritations from escalating into major conflicts. In love and life, self-awareness isn't just a tool, it's a superpower. Number 6. Shift your perspective. Transform anger into understanding. Anger often thrives on a single, rigid perspective. It tells you, they did this to hurt me, they don't respect me, this is personal. But what if you could step back, broaden your perspective, and see the situation differently? Often, changing how you perceive an event can transform anger into compassion, understanding, or even clarity. Anger feeds on assumptions, negative self-centered assumptions. You believe someone's actions are meant to harm or insult you, and that belief fuels your fury. But what if their actions have nothing to do with you? What if, instead, they're rooted in their struggles, misunderstandings, or even ignorance? Shifting your perspective not only diffuses your anger, but also opens the door to a more constructive response. Picture this. You're waiting in line at a coffee shop, and someone cuts ahead of you. Immediately, anger flares. How dare they? Do they think they're better than me? But instead of reacting, you pause and consider. Maybe they didn't see me. Or maybe they're in a rush because of an emergency. With that simple shift, your anger dissolves into curiosity or even empathy. Now, let's bring it closer to home. Imagine your partner forgets an important anniversary or date night. Anger erupts. They don't care about me. How could they be so thoughtless? But what if you pause and think, could they be overwhelmed at work? Are they struggling with something they haven't shared? By shifting your perspective, you move from confrontation to conversation, from blame to understanding. Why this works? Perspective taking isn't just about being nice, it's grounded in psychology. Studies show that reframing a situation reduces emotional intensity and increases problem-solving abilities. When you actively consider alternative explanations for someone's behavior, you disengage the automatic fight or flight response and engage your rational mind. Consider the classic scenario. You're at a restaurant, and the server seems rude and inattentive. The anger rises. Why are they treating me like this? But as you look around, you notice they're juggling multiple tables, looking visibly stressed. Suddenly your frustration shifts. Instead of demanding better service with a sharp tone, you offer a kind word. It seems like a busy night. Hang in there. This shift transforms the interaction and your emotional state. Marcus Aurelius wisely advised, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Changing your perspective is the ultimate exercise of this power. It's not about denying your feelings, but redirecting them toward a more productive and peaceful path. The lesson: anger narrows your vision, perspective broadens it. The next time anger rises, challenge yourself to see the situation differently. Ask questions instead of jumping to conclusions. What might they be going through? Could I be misunderstanding? By shifting your perspective, you're not just calming your anger, you're transforming it into a tool for deeper understanding and stronger connections. And that's where the real power lies. Number 7. Relax and replenish. Harness calm to control anger. Anger is not just a mental state, it's a full-body reaction. Your muscles tense, your heart races, and your mind feels like it's on fire. This is the fight or flight response, an ancient mechanism designed to protect you from danger. But in modern life, where the threats are more emotional than physical, this reaction often works against you. The antidote? Relaxation. By calming your body, you regain control over your emotions. The science of relaxation. When you're angry, your body releases a flood of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals are great for short-term survival but disastrous for long-term emotional stability. Relaxation techniques like deep breathing, walking, or meditation help deactivate this stress response and bring your body back to a state of equilibrium. Imagine this. You're at work, and a colleague makes a critical remark about your project in front of the team. The surge of anger is immediate. Your heart pounds, your fists clench, and you're on the verge of snapping back. But instead of reacting, you excuse yourself, take a 5-minute walk outside, and breathe deeply. By the time you return, the anger has subsided, and you're able to address the situation calmly and professionally. Sometimes, the simplest actions yield the greatest results. Listening to calming music can shift your emotional state almost instantly, transforming tension into tranquility. Similarly, stepping into nature, even for a few minutes, has a grounding effect. The sights, sounds, and smells of the natural world remind you that life is bigger than the immediate source of your anger. In relationships, anger often flares up during disagreements. Picture this. You and your partner are arguing, voices raised, and emotions high. Instead of letting the argument spiral, you take a time out. You go into another room, sit quietly, and focus on your breathing. When you return, the heat of the moment has passed, and you're both able to talk with clarity and respect. This simple act of stepping back can save not just the conversation, but the relationship. Relaxation resets your nervous system, shifting you out of the reactive fight-or-flight mode and into a more balanced state. When your body is calm, your mind follows suit, giving you the clarity to make thoughtful decisions instead of impulsive ones. Seneca once said, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden." Anger is a trial, and calmness is your greatest weapon against it. By mastering relaxation, you're not just reducing anger, you're disarming it entirely. The lesson: when anger takes hold, don't fight it with force. Disarm it with calm. Take a walk, listen to music, or simply breathe. Remember, a chaotic mind will only amplify anger, but a peaceful one can diffuse it entirely. In that state of calm, you'll find not just relief, but strength. Strength to act wisely, speak clearly, and live without regret. Number 8. Set boundaries and reject stressful triggers. Anger often stems from repeated exposure to negative situations or toxic individuals who push your emotional limits. The key to breaking this cycle isn't just managing your reaction, it's preventing the triggers from ever reaching you. By setting firm boundaries and saying no to unnecessary stress, you protect your peace and reclaim your emotional freedom. Boundaries are like invisible shields, defining what you will and will not tolerate. They're not about pushing people away. They're about protecting your energy and mental health. When you allow toxic behaviors to persist, you essentially hand over control of your emotions. But when you enforce boundaries, you regain that control and send a clear message. My well-being is not up for negotiation. Imagine this scenario. You have a friend who constantly criticizes you under the guise of honesty. Every time you share a success, they downplay it. Every time you confide in them, they dismiss your feelings. Initially, you endure it, thinking they're just being blunt. But over time, their negativity eats away your confidence and fuels your anger. Now imagine you decide to set a boundary. The next time they make a cutting remark, you calmly say, "I value honesty, but I won't accept comments that diminish my achievements or feelings." The boundary isn't about cutting them off. It's about redefining the terms of the relationship. If they respect your boundaries, the relationship improves. If they don't, you've identified someone who doesn't deserve a place in your life. Let's take it to the workplace. Perhaps you have a colleague who thrives on creating drama, pulling you into unnecessary conflicts or gossip. Instead of engaging, you draw a line. "I'm here to focus on my work. I'd appreciate it if we kept our conversations professional." By refusing to participate in their chaos, you reduce stress and model professionalism, earning respect from others in the process. Setting boundaries isn't just about avoiding conflict, it's about reinforcing your self-worth. When you make it clear what you will and won't accept, you teach others how to treat you. More importantly, you teach yourself that your peace is worth protecting. This act of self-respect diffuses anger before it even begins. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Boundaries are a manifestation of this principle. You may not control what others say or do, but you can control how much access they have to your life and emotions. The lesson: anger thrives where boundaries are weak. Strengthen yours, and you'll find that many triggers lose their power. By saying no to negativity, you say yes to peace. In doing so, you create a space where anger isn't needed because your well-being is already secure. This isn't avoidance. It's empowerment. And in the battle for your inner calm, boundaries are your strongest ally. Number 9. Turn anger into a positive force. Anger, when left unchecked, can destroy relationships, opportunities, and even your own peace of mind. But when controlled and redirected, it can become one of the most powerful tools for change and growth. Instead of letting anger consume you, use it as fuel to push yourself forward, to prove your worth, and to create the life you deserve. Anger is often seen as destructive, but in reality, it's just energy, a surge of emotion demanding action. The key lies in how you channel it. Will you let it control you, or will you control it? When you harness anger and direct it toward a constructive purpose, it transforms from a hindrance into a driving force. Imagine you're passed over for a promotion at work. The initial wave of anger hits hard. Why didn't they choose me? Don't they see how much I contribute? You could lash out, complain, or even quit in frustration. But instead, you take a deep breath and decide to channel that energy. You start taking on new challenges, seeking out feedback, and sharpening your skills. Months later, your undeniable growth lands you not just a promotion, but the respect of your peers and superiors. The breakup, rising from the ashes. In relationships, anger often arises from betrayal or heartbreak. Picture a scenario where your partner leaves you for someone else. The anger feels overwhelming, a mix of rejection and pain. Instead of sinking into bitterness, you use that fire to rebuild. You focus on self-improvement, hitting the gym, pursuing hobbies you neglected, and investing in your career. Before long, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. And when they see you flourishing without them, the tables turn. Think of the great social movements in history. Many of them were fueled by collective anger at injustice. But instead of descending into chaos, that anger was channeled into organized efforts, powerful speeches, and transformative action. Anger became the spark that ignited change. The Stoics never denied the existence of anger, but cautioned against its uncontrolled expression. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." By pausing and redirecting anger into thoughtful action, you transform a volatile emotion into a force for progress. Anger has the unique ability to focus your mind and energize your actions. It heightens your determination and resilience, making you more likely to persevere in the face of obstacles, but only when you're in control, not the other way around. The lesson: anger is a raw, untamed emotion, but it doesn't have to be destructive. When you channel it into purposeful action, it becomes a tool for growth, resilience, and achievement. The next time anger surges within you, ask yourself, how can I use this energy to make my life better? In that moment, you turn anger from a liability into your greatest ally. Conclusion: anger is not your enemy. It's a powerful emotion that, when left unchecked, can cloud your judgment and harm your relationships. But when understood and managed, it becomes an opportunity to grow, to reflect, and to strengthen your inner peace. The strategies we've explored today aren't just about controlling anger. They're about transforming your life, one mindful action at a time. Take a moment to reflect. How often have you let anger dictate your actions? What could you achieve if, instead of reacting, you paused, understood, and redirected that energy? Imagine a life where anger no longer controls you, but fuels your journey toward self-mastery and fulfillment. Now, here's your next step. Hit that like button and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Why? Because taking action is the first step toward transformation. When you engage with this content, you're not just helping yourself. You're helping to spread wisdom to others who need it. Remember, growth is a shared journey, and by supporting each other, we all rise. So, share your story in the comments below. How do you handle anger? Which of these strategies resonated with you the most? Let's start a conversation that inspires change. Never forget, mastering your anger isn't just about avoiding conflict. It's about choosing peace, clarity, and a life guided by purpose. You have the power to take control, to rise above, and to thrive. And when you do, the world becomes a better place, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Thank you for watching. Stay strong, stay stoic, and we'll see you in the next video.